to educate, motivate, and build one another through shared knowledge and success. This is Young and Successful, and these are your hosts, Jay Chukwi, Kenny Awashika, and PJ Luminan.
And all it takes is a little bit of just engaging with the process, wanting to think things through. And if you don't have the capacity to do it, because I know people don't, depending on their circumstances and situations. Again, you were talking about individuals who are banked and unbanked. There are other issues there in terms of access to the banks, historical factors as it relates to whether or not those banks in that community historically serve Black populations. As we're navigating these spaces and we're talking about these things, there are contextual factors that influence or impact the decisions that people are making, especially when it comes to being banked and unbanked and all that jazz. So even here in Athens, there's a large percentage of the population that's unbanked. But when you start to peel the layers back a little bit, there are a lot of historical things that have happened in Athens, Georgia, where there's a divide between Blacks, whites, or people who are on this side of the community, this side of the community, where things have been done intentionally, but then glossed over as if they weren't intentional, as if they weren't planned, right? Where there's just a growing distrust of what would be traditional banking systems. And I completely get it. Because at the end of the day, banks are in a business to make money. How do they make money? They offer loans, right?
Yeah.
So if you're banked, it's a good thing in terms of being able to have a designated place where you can have money wired or transferred in, lower fees and things of that nature in terms of traditional things instead of check cashing and all that good stuff. However, at the end of the day, banks are still pushing credit cards. Banks are still pushing debt. So it actually could be, and I would need to look at the numbers on this. It actually, in some instances, could be better that someone is unbanked for a period of time instead of being nudged to engage in credit cards to offset and to think about their lifestyles and things of that nature. It's just a different way of thinking. There's a benefit to the banking system, but so much of the banking system revolves around debt and the ability to take our money, right? And then to loan that money into the community. And then it can actually take invisible dollars and loan invisible dollars into a community at a certain point. It's a money-making machine. So all these things kind of come into play as it relates to it. But what was your question about crypto?
Yes. So this kind of takes us nice into crypto. One of the things that I thought was interesting, with Modem Solutions, you guys kind of do your work with a focus on Black men. And first of all, I think that is extremely important work because, as we know, the Black community, especially in America, is the fathers have been removed from the household, and this has various implications that are never ending, and we can have a whole different podcast about that. When it comes to banking, right, and discriminatory activity, if you will, when it comes to banking, I think that with cryptocurrency, right, there's something called DeFi, decentralized finance. I'm not sure if you're familiar. And I think that allows us to be able to remove that human element where you're now able to transact and bank for yourself, being your own bank, right?
Yes.
You can create loans for other people on a blockchain. You can borrow money from the blockchain and be able to pay back that money by using collateral, which is other crypto, which is, and these cool things like that also gains interest, and you can use that interest back to pay back your loan. So you could pay back your loan, which has no term, and the interest rates are, still all over the place there. Yeah, better than a bank, that's for sure, right? And I think, is this something that your organization can implement within the Black community, or at least try to get more of the Black community into it, right? Because it's something that I don't feel like I see a lot of
it's
the community taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I think honestly, cryptocurrency more specifically, because I hate the way that we talk about cryptocurrency because cryptocurrency is the byproduct of the blockchain, right? The focus should be the blockchain, because if we're talking about so I have Satoshi's paper on my desk, his white paper for Bitcoin. And what's fascinating to me is that with a proof of work, and I'm not going to get into all the details of this, but there's a process that goes to incentivize people to confirm the mechanism of the blockchain, right?
Right.
And so when we just talk about Bitcoin, we're actually missing the bigger conversation, which is the technology. This is a technology conversation.
Absolutely.
And we're not seeing it. Everything I look at is just about whether or not how many coins you need to be a millionaire. What people are
Exactly.
completely missing is technology.
Yeah.
And when we talk about technology, though, I think that we are deficient and illiterate when it comes to technology. And when I was reading the Satoshi paper, I was thinking, you know what? Numeracy, science, STEM, making these things cool ultimately would make blockchains cool, cryptocurrency cool. And I don't think that we've gotten there yet. I think that we're definitely moving in that direction. But I think the Charles Hoskinson or Hoskinson
Charles
and
Hoskinson. He's the
and the
greatest one.
people who are actually doing and Charles would be a great person, Cardona, to actually speak on this. I don't want to hear about major high profile individuals who haven't done the work to actually create the blockchains. Literally, we're people are driving this conversation that have no attachment to this stuff, except for they're jumping on the
Elon Musk and
Elon Musk
was Mark Cuban.
Hey, let's
and
just go
and
ahead
other
and blame
people.
the media for that. I think the
And
media
so
is trying to push people to just look at it as a digital currency and not understand the technology behind it.
This is technology. So if we're going to have the conversation, we have to have the conversation about technology and actually demonstrate use cases, right? Because where we are right now reminds me a lot of where we were with QR codes 10 years ago.
Windows operating system, remember? Windows operating system when we were still typewriting back then.
Absolutely. But when you think about the QR code, when it came out, really, really cool idea. Really, really cool idea. But most people didn't really know how to use it or have access to it or think creatively about creative ways to implement it into their everyday life because they were already comfortable with the system and there was no disruption with the system. Pandemic comes along, right? Everything is going to contactless this, contactless that. And I bet you what you saw at restaurants to address this issue was an uptick in utilization of QR codes because it addressed a very important issue. For a lot of Americans right now, because the traditional banking system has done what it's supposed to do for the most part, and we don't experience the unbanking that a lot of the rest of the world does, and the usury fees that are associated with banking in other countries, it's ridiculous. Living on meager means and having access to a bank in a third world country is just unheard of. You just don't have that access. So if this technology can actually already, because what's happening in third world or developing nations is that they're already using their technology and smartphones to wire and transfer money. That's not new. Right. So I think that we need to give credit to where credit's due because you have people in other countries that are actually driving the wave of where technology is going and where banking is going. And I don't want that. So if we go to Africa or any other place or whatever it may be, they've already been on this wave. It's already been there. It's just that now what we're doing, instead of having a middle person or an institution, to y'all's point, that actually serves as the ledger to make sure that everything works, now we can use this technology that is blockchain that can be done really, really cheaply so people can do what they've already been doing and keep more money in their pockets. I think that that's a more effective way to have this conversation. Because now we're talking about technology and how you can use this to do what you're already doing without any of the fees and more safety and security, right? And then you're not, and if it's on this blockchain, if there's political instability in your nation or country, you're actually protected against that. That is powerful. But every conversation we're having right now is just about how somebody can make a quick $1 million.
Yeah,
And we're
and put
not focusing
$1,000
on
in
the
there and
tech
made a
side
million
of it.
bucks.
So I love this movement of the blockchain technology and the work that's being done, where I think we can make bigger inroads. And this is just a big picture idea. I'm not the person to drive it. It's like, could someone who is, I hope somebody's watching this who's in the tech space or whatever it may be, say that, you know what, this technology is really powerful. Could we not encourage African American kids and African American communities to engage in maybe a summer camp where, or I'll, you know what, I'm going to send a random message to Charles on his live feed.
Charles Hodgkinson.
Yep,
Yeah,
on
he's
his
doing
live.
that already
And I'm
in
going to say it
Africa
would be
already,
really,
actually.
really cool
He has a
Right.
program in
if you
Nigeria
had
and
a
Kenya for that.
program that was created, right? That could be a summer program for kids to understand how to code for the blockchain.
Yeah. Yep. He's doing that already.
Yeah, so they're doing something similar like that in South Africa, where they have a hub.
Oh, boom, love it.
And they're training a lot of the youths in Africa to
Code.
start learning how to code and be able to launch projects on the Cardano blockchain.
Love it. So could we do it here? Is it being done here?
Exactly, and that's why I was asking you, like, is that something that can be used to improve
because this is the thing, because what situation. It does is it shows, because we're infusing coding, we're infusing new technology and how to get on the front end of it, right? And then if you can get on the front end of something, that means that you can get to market sooner than other people can, which means that you can monetize ideas before we have a huge supply of similar ideas that you had.
Yep.
And then kind of water down how much you can monetize off of it. So I think it would be a really, really cool thing to kind of consider. But if we're going to talk about this, especially in the Black community, we have to shift the conversation from making a cool million by buying the coins and thinking front end of this and said, hey, I love tech, I love math, I love these things. How can I learn how to make a dApp on this platform? That's where the win is. That's where the legacy building in general, because eventually everybody's going to catch up on this other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Where you differentiate is how do we actually use the technology to our benefit, right? And that's the conversation. That's the conversation that's not That's not happening right now. And I think that if we can have more of that conversation, that would be huge. But then when we talk about Black culture, though, it's math and science. Cool.
Needs to happen more. Yeah.
Right? Is it cool? Like, and that's the issue. It's like we don't oftentimes see the beauty and the value in these things and where the real money is. If we're chasing all the money that everybody else is chasing, that's not the real money.
The media pushes Black men into either rap music or sports. Coming to America, going to school together with you guys, everybody wanted to be a football player, basketball player, and I think we were the geeks, we were the one in chemistry class, and it's crazy. If we can, you've done your part in giving back to the community, and you continue to do that. Part of our mission as Young and Successful is to do exactly what we're doing right now, is to get the word out that it's not just all sports, and music. There's a great word out there that is just as fun and better long-term return on whatever it is that you like to do.
On some of our videos here on the channel, we have a lot of videos on crypto adoption. That's pretty much almost every day. Right? We talk about other things about crypto news. And of course, we also do our technical analysis and things like that, because whoever can win from it, then that's great. Right? Then we started getting to DeFi and things like that. And I think that the opportunities that it presents are incredible. And the idea is not fully formulated in my mind. And I think obviously we know that once you're on the blockchain, everything is neutral. Everyone is the same. And if that can be implemented somehow, which I'm brainstorming, right, to allow the Black community to take control of their their economy,
Their music, their
right?
art, because you can take your art,
Um,
put it into NFTs. Your
right.
music could also
And
be, yeah,
how does that change things? Because to be honest with you, and it, not to sound down, but I feel like any community that is not able to take advantage of this to put themselves on the same playing field with anyone else,
Mhm.
the book behind.
I don't know what else is going to help them, man.
Yep.
I don't know what is going to help them. So that's what I think of that. And
Uh,
and
this
we'll,
would
we'll
this would
we'll see how it goes in South Africa. Go
this
ahead.
this would be my ask of you all, as you all
Right.
continue to make your videos and things of that nature, is to continue to show how this could be used,
Mm.
and then thinking about how, and then even more creatively. So the beautiful thing with any platform like the internet, nobody thought people were going to take the internet and do with it what they've done with it up to this point. Like
This
you
is
Even
couldn't
true.
right
see
now
it,
with Zoom.
right?
Yeah.
So there is a intellectually curious and creative way of thinking about seeing opportunities. And I feel as if within our community more specifically, we're so focused on um, the emergency
Yeah.
that we don't develop oftentimes the skill set to see the opportunity.
Mm.
And it's a concept that I teach in my class, especially as it relates to investing. I was like, you're utilizing a consumption mindset in everything that you do. I was like, I'm no different than you. I just look at your consumption and say, where's the opportunity?
Mm.
Right? I'll go to Google Trends. I'll do a lot of different things to see kind of like what's moving, whether or not if what I'm seeing with students or if I'm seeing in the community is also manifesting itself algorithmically with Google and things of that nature in terms of what people are searching for. And I'll
Right.
start digging a little bit deeper. But I was like, the only difference here is that I'm looking for opportunity. And if I miss an opportunity, I'll go back to that thing that I missed and I'll go back 3 months of information. And I'll say, what didn't I see here?
Hmm.
Why didn't I see this as an opportunity? Why did I potentially miss it? And what would prevent me from missing it again? Is it because didn't have access or wasn't privy to certain information? Well, where is this information now? Right? And it's this constant engagement in the process of seeing things before they becomes, because once Cardano, Polkadot, VeChain, whatever it may be, whatever somebody's investing in,
Yeah.
once it becomes ABC news, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
This is facts, and that's coming. I would say that
It's coming. But
it's
once
coming.
once it becomes ABC news, the major news outlets only report on things, generally speaking, like this stuff
Trends.
after it's been happening for a year and a half. And it's
Yeah.
actually bubbled up to a point to where they say, oh, now we'll start talking about it. But
Yeah.
once they start talking about it, everybody knows, right? And if everybody
Absolutely.
knows, and that means demand goes up, guess what? That means the price and the costs go up because there's already a limited supply. And if this is happening globally, then we have another issue. So one of my biggest things is when it comes to seeing opportunities is that, guess what? When you see opportunities, most people aren't going to think it's cool because it hasn't made the news.
Mainstream. Yeah.
It hasn't made mainstream news. And that's just
Yeah.
a part of the process. Most opportunities are the things that other people kind of like, I don't know, right? I don't know. Like behavioral finance and financial therapy, all these, like they're becoming more and more popular now. But people
Absolutely.
have been doing this stuff for 20 or 30 years.
Yep.
Nobody thought it was important
Yeah.
because we were
Yeah.
using
It actually
classical.
came up in the Mike Tyson interview, which I thought was interesting.
It's fascinating. Like nobody thought this stuff was important until the last 3 years now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's been a complete shift, but this has always been a thing. Now I have people coming up to me talking about money mindset and all these other I've never existed, right?
Absolutely.
Like Dr. Archuleta and Dr. John Grable and all these other people who've actually been in these spaces for decades, who are the real
Yeah.
experts in this space. Like these people don't even exist And I got people popping up and acting like they're experts on something because they just heard about it. I'm like, no. Right?
Exactly.
And that's the
It's
space that we live in. And it's weird to me,
yeah.
but I accept it because I'm more of a forward thinking person. And I used to be ashamed of that, but I'm not ashamed of that anymore. Because what I've realized is that like the IPOs, like there are several, I invested in Etsy. I invested in Zoom when it first came out. I invested in Beyond Meat's IPO when it first came out. And usually IPOs aren't investments that you usually want to invest in, right?
Yeah, most people
Absolutely.
are fearful of those.
Nobody, like people were looking at me like, why are you investing in Zoom? I was like, everybody uses it.
Yeah, well, you can
Everybody is using it. Why?
you can tell them now that your portfolio is doing great. So
But you get what I'm saying now. It's
yeah,
like
I get
if
it.
you want to be successful, you
Yeah.
have to be willing to stand on your convictions when they're unpopular. Because popularity can't drive success.
Weather the storm, man.
It can't,
We're going
because
down
if
with
you want
Cardano
more
right now.
popularity, you'll never be successful because you'll never have the gumption to follow through on your convictions. And that's so incredibly important. Be popular. I don't even care about popularity, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't want to really be seen. I enjoy doing the work. I enjoy helping people, but I don't love this notion of fame,
Fame.
that in the way that we engage with it. And so I want the money.
But I would say this though, as much as unfortunately, I do look at fame as I look at fame as a negative, really, that comes with greatness. But would you say that the reason why, because these days people become famous literally for saying things that are common sense, right? There are people, like I say, like you said, like someone like Dave Ramsey. For me personally, when I first came across Dave Ramsey, this is when I was just starting to learn about being more financial literate, if you will. And I'm watching this guy and I'm like, holy crap, this is mind blowing. But a lot of what he's saying is, it makes sense because it's simple and it's common sense, right? But maybe no one ever told you before, so it never clicked into your mind. But I think that also speaks to the lack of information that is out there, and now it shows that, because before YouTube and anyone could get on there, right? Like right now, you have people, lawyers and financial advisors and everything else, and they're able to come onto a platform like YouTube and just dish out knowledge, right? Which is exactly why we do this, being able to hear from other people who are good at what they do. We all learn from it, right? And versus before, where you're just watching TV and they'll only show you what you can see, right? So everyone was a fan of Angelina Jolie and whoever else is on the big screens. But it's so interesting how you can be a fan of anyone now just because of the value that they provide to your life, right? It's unfortunate that also means fame, but what are your thoughts on that?
And it's fleeting.
Yeah,
that's the issue. The Netflix has ultimately created a model that is literally unsustainable for an individual to do over. You'd literally have to have a team of content creators to create enough to satiate the appetite of individuals. And you can't satiate the appetite of individuals because everything that they're consuming has empty calories. And that's unfortunately the situation that we're in. So if I consume something and all right, that was good, but I'm not full, well, where's my next episode? Right? And if you don't provide it, guess what? Somebody else.
To the next.
You literally have people right now on YouTube who are posting 3 days a week, not 3 days, 3 times a day, every day throughout the week on whatever topics that they're talking about, because they're trying to keep up with this model that Netflix has created. And this is the unfortunate thing, is that we're recording this right now. you all did some stuff on the front end. We had some communications. You'll take this, you'll probably do some stuff on the back end or whatever it may be in terms of like your setup and making sure that things are good. There's a production that's happening here, and it takes time, energy, and effort and thoughtfulness. And to think that your work will be consumed once and then discarded. My work will be consumed once and then discarded without having any recognition of how much energy and time and effort that's not reality. But what the internet does is that it allows for us to engage in a reality that's not consistent with the seasons, that's not consistent with time as we naturally know it, because we can get everything at a push of a button, which is absolutely fascinating. So my biggest thing with the whole fame thing is fame, as I understand it right now, is directly related to how valuable you are in the national current or conversation that's happening right now. You can, any of us, we could, if we keep working, we could be famous for 2 weeks. But the trick is, can we take that spark and then drive this thing so that we can still be relevant a year from now? Most people can't, not in this space. It's very difficult. And that's the piece of it that humbles me. So if I produce something, if I post a video or whatever it may be, I try to create stuff that's evergreen as best as I can, that people can come back to over and over again, whenever they find it, whenever they see it. And I don't worry about the follows, the clicks, the likes, and the views as much as I would in the past, because I've realized it's not how many people view you, it's whether the right person views you.
Absolutely.
Right. So what I've learned is that we made a reference to what's his face from Shark Tank,
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, and he'll make the comment all the time. He was like, "Yeah, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to invest in this because you only need one." Right? He was like, "You only need one." Well, easy said for someone who has like close to billions of dollars, right?
This is true.
Our space, though, it's important to produce content, but it's important to be seen by the right people at the right time. And I think that's where there are a lot of really successful people that I know that only have like 10,000 followers on their social media, but they're millionaires.
Yeah.
Think about that. So think about how many people are on Instagram or on some of these platforms where they haven't cultivated the millions and millions of followers because they're not doing an animal update or discovery plan update, a nuke or whatever it may be. But they have millions of followers, right? But then you have these other people who are really, really big, powerful key players in their space, in their industry, and people gloss over them.
Yeah.
In the social media space. But in this space where deals get done and things get happen and your name gets put in front of people, that's the person you want watching your videos. So I just kind of keep that in mind. I was like, if I create, as we think about this, I don't want to be famous by everyone. I want to be recognized by the real
right people.
If that makes sense. Like if you want to watch something or you see something like Kenny looks at something that I do and he's like, I like that. All right, I appreciate that coming from Kenny.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that means something. And I hope that it would mean something from other people, but I'm very selective about where I receive or get feedback from, or I allow for individuals to have any power in space and in my life. Because I think there was an NBA player who said it best. He said Kobe had told him that people aren't cheering for you, they're cheering for what you can do. And the moment you are no longer or able to do the thing, they will cheer for someone else. Stay humble, right? So that really is the philosophy that I adopt when it comes to this space, or fame, or becoming viral and things of that nature. Have integrity with what you do, and drive the work that you want to, because that's the freedom that comes with this space. You can have any conversation that you want to have. because you're not tied to money. Because once you get tied to money, guess what? People are going to say, oh, I love that angle, but can we do this?
Culture.
I love
Yeah.
that you want to focus on the Black community, but the way that things work, we want a more generalizable audience. Could you appease that, right? So there generally there are some trade-offs. That's gotten better, especially after Black Lives Matter and things of that nature in terms of corporations and people kind of getting behind this. I'm not sure how authentic some of this is.
Hmm.
We'll continue to ride this out for another 3 or 4 years to see if this stays.
Absolutely.
But to your point though, the whole fame thing is fleeting.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna make a lasting impact, I'd rather make an impact with the N of one than an N of 100 who comes and then they go, or an N of 1,000 who comes or they go. If I can have an N of 100 that's like loyal and down, I'm good with that, because of that 50, if you transform those lives of those individuals like in a real way, we're talking about millions of dollars of potential net worth, both now and in generationally. That's huge impact.
Absolutely.
So I see the
Definitely.
numbers that way.
Man, Dr. Mike, look, man, obviously we can go forever. I know you have other things to do, and we gotta wrap this up. But here's what I'm gonna do. We have two more questions, right?
Yeah, go
We're
for
gonna
it.
do two more questions. But okay, can I actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to rephrase one of them. Usually we usually ask, what knowledge would you share with anyone out there who is, you know, trying to get after it, get out there and do what they're trying to do. But I'm going to change it up a bit here, because in your situation, your company, right, Modem Solutions, has a focus, right, in with a financial focus on Black men,
Mhm.
right, and we know that for men in general, there are not many conventions out there where they get, you know, good information. So, what would you say to a young man, right, who is trying to sort it out, figure it out, and become into their own man?
Yeah, I would. Phew. There's so many things that I can think of, but I think the thing that I think would matter most
Yeah.
is, are your pursuits about ego or is it about the goal? That would be the question that I would leave. Is this about ego or is this about actually achieving the goal? And the reason why I say that is because I've worked with a lot of men in general, not just Black men, but just different
Mm-hmm.
races, nationalities, and things of that nature. And ego is something that I think that we need to address within our households and as we think about wealth creation in general. Um, because what I found is that ego would either calls for a man not to seek help when he should be seeking help, to be making very risky financial decisions with significant resources within a household, or it would cause for um, someone just to be completely avoidant and not want their ego to be bruised, so to speak, because of their lack of information. And then they kind of navigate life with a level of ignorance, but then that's kind of what's the right word that I'm looking for? It's masked with bravado.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's the conversation of, oh yeah, so what's going on with you, man? Yeah, I'm doing good, bro. I'm about to do this thing over here, and I'm glad I got this other thing going on, and we about to get this other thing popping, bro. You know how we
Yeah.
do. You know how we
Yep,
do.
yep, yep.
And I'm
Yeah.
Happen.
like,
Yeah.
all right, so what are we actually doing,
Yeah.
right? Like, do you have a business plan? Have you looked at publication 535 in terms of tax business expenses and understanding how you can structure the way that your spending is structured in the most optimal way from a tax efficient perspective so that you can save money there? Have you thought about your demographic? Have you started pricing out things? what capital, how much time is this really going to take? Do you actually have the time to invest? Do you need to bring somebody else on with you? If you do that, what do you have an agreement set up? Do you have a partnership agreement set up? If you don't, you need a partnership agreement set up. You need to clearly define and detail these things out. And I mean, there are like so many different layers. But then when you start actually talking about the nuts and bolts of how to get this done, then it's like, I don't really want to talk about this right now, Mike. I appreciate you, but you know how we do. You get what I'm saying? And nothing ever gets done. And we just kind of stay in that place. It's like this illusion, right? It's like it's social media. It's a lot of times it's this illusion of movement, but nothing ever happens. But yet everybody gets hyped over the notion or the
visuals,
the visuals of something happening, and it's not real. So for me, if it's about ego, it's going to be very difficult. With ego, you can still achieve a lot, but sustaining it is going to be incredibly difficult. And that's where you see the back end of this. Because most people are like, well, I'm making money, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You can't tell me nothing. But again, when you work with people that I work with who make good money and who are struggling with other things beyond that, and you're trying to clue people into things that they don't see coming, that they can't see coming right now because they're blinded by their success, then I struggle with that because ego can get in the way. Just because you're making money doesn't mean that you're going to keep the money. The whole idea is to create wealth, grow it, sustain it.
Yeah, money starts moving.
Like you don't win by just getting it. You win by keeping it and growing it, and then creating systems where you can keep it in a family and you can grow it in a family.
Generation. Yeah.
On and on and on and on. Like that's the win. It's not like this short-term thing, but that's ego, right? But if it's about the goal, then I know that we have a starting point to say that you can receive and that you can hear feedback that has nothing to do with dethroning you. You be the king of your castle. You be the man of your household. You do your thing. I salute you, king, right? But every king I know historically has had counsel. No king goes into war without first consulting his trusted counsel. Yet we have a space where people feel it's like I have to do it all on my own. I don't need a financial planner. I don't need a tax person. I don't need X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. I'm kind of like, I understand the all me mentality and mantra. I get it. But the value that's provided in these spaces, especially when we're talking about large sums of money, there's a reason why the most successful people you see have teams of planners, accountants, and trusted individuals who help them navigate the nuances of not just making the money, but keeping as much as the money that they've made, right? Because that's another part of the process. So that's the thing. Is it about ego or is it about ego? And if it's about ego, why? Do you have a wound that hasn't been healed? Are you dealing with some type of trauma? Are you dealing with something, right, that if you don't address this, once you've achieved some level of success, it will expose you?
Mike Tyson somebody?
In that space. So what?
Yeah. I said Mike Tyson somebody. That was the old Mike. I was watching the Mike Tyson and I was like, this is Michael Thomas right here telling, like, this guy, if he had Dr. Michael Thomas in his life before his dad died.
But that's what happens. To your point, I think that Mike Tyson's story is a beautiful story. Yeah. Because what happens is when we see that people are successful, we automatically assume that they're whole. When we see that, when we perceive someone to be impoverished, we automatically assume that they lack, right? And that's not necessarily true. Just because someone is only making $40,000 or $45,000 a year doesn't mean that they lack a thing. They can actually be living their best life, And you have somebody I had a client several years ago, couple, were making collectively $500,000 a year. And the first thing that they said when we started working together was like, we make all this and we can't make ends meet. We're struggling. Right. But this is the thing though, because people don't do the work that actually do the work, right? You'll have people who talk about this stuff, but they don't actually work with people in the thick of what they're going through, regardless of social.
Maybe even live it.
What'd you say?
Some people talk, but they don't live the lifestyle.
Absolutely. So it's one of those things where like money can only get us so far. We also have to address whether or not we're whole. Because if we have those gaping wounds and we feel like more money is going to be able to heal that thing, it's not. There's no end to it, right? So when you're focused on the goal and you have a level of humility and perspective, to me, it suggests that as you are going on this journey, you're not going to be tripped up by something that should not have tripped you up. Because it's not just about getting the money, it's about keeping the money, growing the money, and creating generational wealth. So that would be my biggest thing.
Spectacular.
Check the ego and confide in some other men that can help you begin to unpack some of this stuff. Because avoidance is the natural, I say this all the time, avoidance is the natural enemy of financial wellness. It's like a virus that's dormant.
Right.
That attacks your immune system when it's at its weakest. And when are people at their weakest? When they're most stressed. When do people experience more stress? When they earn more money. Because you have more obligations, you have more commitments, more people are depending on you. You're experiencing more stress. And when you start experiencing more stress, then these gaping wounds or these things that you've put in the recesses of your mind, if you have not addressed those, that will be the optimal time in which those things start to reemerge and start to cause more issues than you should have otherwise have had. So my biggest thing is with the ego versus the goal. It's just really as young men, women, Black community in general, as they are navigating their financial wellness journeys, also be thinking about wholeness and healing emotionally from hurt, from trauma, from other things. Because if we don't, we'll substitute money as the balm, so to speak, that we use to address those wounds. And money has never been designed. Money will give you access, but it's not designed to heal you. And a lot of people think that healing comes with money. No, it doesn't. That's why people say more money reveals more what people already are.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what happens. So if you get revealed, at least be revealed having addressed those issues along the way, as opposed to getting tripped up and being revealed by those issues later. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, I think that was a good saying, because I think I heard somewhere it says, yeah, if you're a good person, money only amplifies how good you are.
Yep.
And if you're not, it also does the same in the other way. Well, okay, Kenny, obviously we've come to the final question here. Definition of success. Do you want to take this away?
Hey,
Definition.
I think you already drew some bits and pieces of that definition.
I know. I was gonna say he's already answered this question just
in the man.
Right, with everything you said,
I would say success is the success does not have to be something that's this lofty aspiration. Right? I think that we need to reframe success. I think that we need to reframe success in terms of anything that we consistently do that we've set out to do. That's success. Bare minimum. Like if your goal for the week is just to make sure that the kitchen is clean and dishes are put up for the entire week, and you set that as a goal, and you every day do that, you have one successful day. right? If you miss a day, all right, you have one day where you weren't successful. You have two successful days, and you have three, and then you have four, and you build some momentum. So let's say you were successful 6 out of 7 days. That's a success, right? What
Yeah.
we do oftentimes is that my goal is I want to do it for the entire week. And if I miss a day,
I'm not successful.
Yeah.
right? So we will literally take the 6 days being successful and completely discard them because of one day. So as we think about success, I want us to think about the incremental successes and celebrate those micro goals or those small challenges that we use to work towards the thing. Because a lot of times we don't really have control oftentimes over the outcome per se, because there are so many variables that come into play beyond our efforts that play into success.
Yeah.
Timing,
Yeah.
so many different things. So if all we can control is just showing up one day at a time, then literally be present, focus on the one thing that we can control today, win the day, celebrate it, thank God for it, and then set our minds to try to do it again the next day and just walk it up one day at a time. And if we can adopt that type of mentality, I think that that's a success mindset, and that's definitely something that I try to live by. Um, and it can be whatever anybody wants for it to be. No, if anything, nobody defines your success for you. Nobody defines success for me. I define my success. If I go out on a run tonight, if I was, and I set 4 miles, if somebody's driving by, they don't know how many miles I've ran. I could have just started. They don't know,
This
right?
is true.
I, I know, right? So I have to hold myself accountable for my success. So it's owning your success. I always say you have more power than you think. Own it. So it's owning your success and just winning everything just gradually, one day at a time, and just build those wins and celebrate the small things every day. We live life every day, not at the end of the journey. So if we can adopt that type of mentality, I think that that's success.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mike Thomas, we're going to be putting your links in the description as well. But would you just give people, I guess, a brief of where they can find you?
Yeah, if you want to, you can check me out on my website, Modom, MODOM, which stands for money and wisdom. It's the two combined. It comes from Ecclesiastes 7, 11, and 12, which that money and wisdom can get you almost anything in life, but wisdom is the only thing that can save your life. So that is something that God placed on my heart, and I just combined the two things together. And you'll see that a lot in the stuff that I write. So it's not much about money; it's more about the wisdom that should be associated with it. So if you go to my site and you read my blog posts and things of that nature, you're not going to find this is how you do a Roth, this is how you set up these other different things. I typically do one-on-one services when we talk about stuff like that because there are a lot more nuances that I need to understand contextually about someone's situation before making a financial recommendation in some sort.
Mhm.
But a lot of it is just this holistic perspective about money and about wisdom. So at modemsolutions.com, or you can check me out on Instagram at Modem Solutions. And I generally post, I think, lighthearted, engaging posts that really, again, tether together financial knowledge
Get you
and
thinking, man.
also emotions and
Yeah.
therapy and all these other different things. So it's different.
Hey, I have
So,
to
but
check it out.
I want you to be ready for different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, okay, can you go
Dr.
ahead?
Mike is not a cookie box kind of guy. I would say I've been proud to be a consultation client of his when I was trying to make one of the biggest purchases of my life. And it's not like it's not like Dave Ramsey where it's like, oh yeah, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do that, boom, you good. It's like, okay, lots of questions. Like, yo, why are you asking me all these questions? But it gets to the point. And if you're out there, you want to make a big financial decision. Oh, should I get married? Should I buy a house? It doesn't have to be something drastically. It doesn't even have to be bad. But if it has to do with, I need some more wisdom in making this decision. should I go to college? Give
Yeah.
him a call. He'll be
Yeah.
glad to help you out. It's a
You know,
wonderful guy.
Kenny, to your point, that's so significant because a lot of people would say, all right, I'm all about transparency, right? So my session fee is $150 an hour. Um, and the reason why I say that though is because a lot of people say, oh, $150, I don't know, right? I don't know.
Mm.
But then my thing is, um, if us working together, or you working with any other financial coach or advisor or therapist or whatever it may be, that time actually prevents you from making a decision in which you were locked into for 5 years, 15 years, or 30 years that causes undue stress that then has implications on your health, on your relationships with a significant other, or even your children and extended family. And then you're dealing with the financial difficulty and issues that unfortunately a lot of households run into. Then at the end of the day, when you think about that, you have to ask yourself, was in hindsight, right? If $150 could have prevented me, right? Think of it, you get where I'm going with this. If
I
that
was
could,
gonna say everything that comes after that is way more than 150
and that's
bucks.
the thing, because we're numbers people, and
Yeah.
I can compute the numbers, I can show you the numbers, but a lot of people aren't, they don't navigate in the numbers and proofs way
Yeah.
of the world, right? So I see it very visibly in terms of, all right, what I'm providing is absolutely relatively cheap as it relates to the actual value that you're getting that you
Mm.
can't see
Yeah.
oftentimes over the next few years based on what we've talked about and how you can provide a guide for somebody. So again, it's this whole notion of um, deferred gratification oftentimes with some of the work that we do. But the beauty is that when you work with people and they actually follow through and they actually get to a point to where for the first time in their lives, in their family's history, they're actually wealth positive and not in a negative wealth position, which is where a lot of people are. And they're starting to build momentum and create wealth and start to have conversations with their children about creating wealth and
Mm.
entrepreneurship and all these other different things. That's pretty powerful to me. And our space sometimes I think gets a bad rap because I don't know any other profession where people say I'm not going to pay for that. People don't say I'm not going to pay for a lawyer. People don't say necessarily I'm not going to pay for a physician. People don't say I'm not going to pay for this or that or the other. But yet a lot of people think that when it comes to the financial planning space that they should not have to pay for the expertise of someone who is not just looking at one part of your situation, but is looking at how
So,
all of these pieces connect and are running calculations and Excel sheets and in thinking about tax code and the law and how this impacts this or how this impacts that, or if you're going to be an S corp or not be an S corp, and what does that mean if you do become an S corp? What type of filing do you have to have, and what does this process actually look like? Even when I provide taxes for people, and that I've done in the past, if I've done something as it relates to their particular tax situation, I always attach the tax code to it
mm,
so that they can always
that's
get
really
that
good.
as a reference to say, oh, can I write this off? I don't know if you can write that off, but let me go and check that out. Because if you're a small business owner and you're doing a lot of write-offs, your chances potentially of being deemed to be audited can go up, right? So I want for a client, or in the past I have wanted for a client to have a surety that what we were doing is something that they felt confident with and that it connects to the tax code. So it takes nothing for me to say, all right, this is what we have here. Here's the link to where this is in the tax code. This is what we're going to go with. And if anything comes up, just have it filed away. You have your receipts and your documents there. No stress, right? Because that's the reason why you would hire someone like me. It's not just to do it, but any event that something comes up, we know that everything is legit. And it's not just you took my word for it, right? Like
Exactly.
I don't want someone just to trust me because I have credentials. Like for me, this
Yeah.
is not a signaling thing. Like me being Dr. Thomas is not a signal for trust. It's all right, I should have the capacity to engage in a knowledgeable conversation with this person. And this person should be able to, based on where their area of expertise is, answer my questions in such a way where I feel a level of comfort. That's what my designation means. Not as a front to say, don't worry, I got it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'll stop
Well,
there.
listen, I think that if it's $150 to get blasted with knowledge that takes you to the next level,
What you get
I
to lose.
mean, come on, man. And I think that's the thing, people in general have to, I guess, find a way to see the value behind investing in themselves.
Yeah.
And that takes that complete change in mindset, right? No matter where you find it from, hopefully it's here, right?
Yeah. Well, I show it now. In the past, I did not, because I didn't.
Right.
I've had to learn this.
Yeah.
So at the very end of a session, I will show projected value add based on the game plan that we've set out. So if you do this, this is where you should be, right? And so if us working together means that if you're in a position where you save $1,500 or a few $1,000s, or you're in a better, whatever it may be, then you can immediately see that value. And all we have to do is just kind of stick to the plan. And I think as a profession, I don't think that we've always done the best job of communicating the value add, and in what that means, not just from a numbers perspective, but from the perspective of the goals of that client or that person. Like, because of this, you are now able to do more of the things that you said that you wanted to do. And this is how we made that happen, right? And that's where the magic is. And that's what I love most about what we do, is that you literally get to help people experience life, at least right now, the way that they want, and then help them create the space so that their future self has the resources to experience the life the way he or she may want when he or she gets there. Because what we know about the data is that we are very different people at every phase of life, 5 years out. So what we think we want now, 5 years to 10 years out, is usually very different. So this is always a moving target. So it's live now and live later, but just create the space to do both.
Knowledge is power. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for spending time with us and dropping knowledge on the Yas Nation. Hopefully we can have you back on the show again to talk about other things. I can tell there's so much more that we could touch on this.
Yeah, there's no end to this.
Exactly. Very important conversations. And I would like to have another conversation again about Black men and leveling up, right? Coming from the communities that we come from and stepping outside, breaking that barrier, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we can make that happen again. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, any final words?
Hey, man, I have to say, this has been a splendid conversation. Literally, we've been here for about 2 hours, so we're gonna have to have a part one.
It's been 2 hours, dude. I felt like it was only like 5 minutes, man.
Part two, yeah.
I wasn't even done. You know. Exactly. Hey, well, we're gonna be closing this one out. Until next time, Chavon Brazen out.